number our days. The teachers that we was the slaves. In Deuteronomy 28, the most popular. When he anointed Joshua, it's proving that y'all love us by sending us judges, rejecting the grudges, embracing the truth. Other nations, the truth is shown through Ruth, the woman that David come through. Pete Samuel 1 and 2. Y'all's chosen the kings and you won too. Recognition Chronicles in the first and the second. And Ezra HaKohen, fasted by the river Ahava, stood with Nehemiah in the time of Hadassah, better known as Esther. Job struck with disease and boils that festered. And we giving our arms while singing Hebrew songs. The most wisest words are spoken in Proverbs. The Colette, the teacher, ecclesiastical preacher. Fellas wanna reach her, quote the songs belong to Solomon. Understand the way that I'm on. Isaiah, Jeremiah, lamented when Jerusalem fell. Also seen by Ezekiel, vision vividly given to Daniel. God said return to him in prayer. Remember Hosea, if we call on Yah'el, he'll remember us well. Spoken by Yoel, there's no other book as famous. The words get deeper in Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, and Micaiah. There's none like Yah that rides on the whirlwind in Nehemiah. I'm giving you a look like he gave to Habakkuk. Gather yourselves and learn from Zephaniah. Consider your ways, word up to Haggai, cause this is the last days. And men Zechariah, remember the law of Moshe. And this has been 39 books given to you by Ishaq. Malachi, seek ye out the book of Yah and read. Speak these words to plant your holy seed. Obey his voice, know him and believe. Understand his Yah is none but he. Seek ye out the book of Yah and read. Speak these words to plant your holy seed. Obey his voice, know him and believe. Understand his Yah is none but he. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Come on. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Come on. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Seek ye out the book of Yah. Come on. Yeah. Let's go.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the Holy One of Israel, to the Creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is, by saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Once again, the Creator has allowed us to come before you another day, another week, bringing to you his great, holy, and exalted words, even the words of truth. My name is Moray Ishaya Yisrael of the House of Israel, located right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, 2330 Kemper Lane, bringing to you nothing but the truth. And yes, it is true. All we're going to do is tell you the truth. For Yah ordained me to tell you the truth, and this is what I'm going to do. And who is this Yah? Yah is the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is. Yah is the Elohim of our fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, whom you may know as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yah is our king. He is our judge, he is our lawgiver, and Yah is our only Savior, and not just of Israel. Yah is the Savior of the world. And I praise the mighty Yah for allowing us to come before you another week to bring to you his great, holy, and exalted words. Even the words of truth. This week, even though this week, we will be celebrating the Day of Blowing, which you might know as the Feast of Trumpets, this week, on the 5th day of this week. Here at 2330 Kemper Lane, we will be here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. celebrating our holy day. And then after that, we will have a feast. But we also will send portions to those who have nothing, as we typically do, even as the scripture says. But this week we will be dealing with the 7 everlasting covenants of Yahweh. And if you tuned in to our program yesterday, because our program don't start on the second day of the week, which you know as Monday, it actually starts on Sunday. We just do broadcasts and don't do live teaching. And yesterday we did a broadcast of our 17th annual conference 10 years ago, where Moray Elisha dealt with the 7 everlasting covenants of Yahweh. And we'll talk about why these are indeed, even though it's more covenants in the scriptures than 7, but these are the 7 everlasting covenants that Yahweh will make with his servants, with his people, the children of Israel, beginning with Abraham. So if you want to know precisely who this covenant is made with, it is with the Hebrews, because this started with Abraham. In the first everlasting covenant that he will make with our Father, whom he told us to look to, is circumcision. And we're going to deal with all 7. And we're going to show you how relevant all 7 are today, even as or even more relevant than in the past. And circumcision is number 1. And little do people know, here it is, people looking to get married. And marriage is a covenant that was instituted by the Most High. Not only it is a covenant, but marriage is a holy covenant. Now, how do I know marriage is a holy covenant, holy matrimony? Because the Creator lets us know that we are to raise, we are to bring forth a holy seed. And how can you bring forth a holy seed in your marriage, in your matrimony is not holy? And how can you have a holy seed, holy matrimony, and you married, or you in a marriage, and you're not even checking to see or even questioning whether a man is circumcised? This should be the very first thing you want to know. And not just circumcised in the flesh, but then you're not even checking to see if one is circumcised in the heart. It's one thing for a man to look for a virtuous woman, to look for a woman, a wife that serves Yahweh. But you got to ask yourself, sisters, are you looking for a man that is circumcised? Not just in flesh, but it begins in the flesh. Because if he's circumcised in flesh, chances are he might just be circumcised in the heart. But don't assume that. And why don't you assume that? Because many people got circumcised in the flesh, but they don't even know why. They don't even know the purpose. They don't even know the meaning behind this circumcision, because they were raised and taught, just like you and I was, that circumcision profits nothing. There's no profit in being circumcised. There's no profit in being uncircumcised. In other words, it's meaningless. But not to the Most High. And where did we learn that circumcision profit nothing? In the New Testament. In many of your religious institutions that's supposed to teach you the truth. But they're not going to teach you the truth about the covenants, the everlasting covenants of Yahweh. But here we are. And not only we're going to teach you these covenants, we're going to teach you their purpose, their meaning, in order. And there's an order to everything that Yahweh do. And you're not going to learn order nowhere else. I can assure you that. You're not going to understand that and know how important order is. But again, we're talking about circumcision. Now, where should we start this process? I'm going to show you what a covenant is, because many of our people don't even have a clue what a covenant is, whether it's marriage or whether it's circumcision. I'm going to show you that and break that down to you. But before I do that, I want you to see the meaning, the purpose of circumcision. Now watch this. So we're going to tell you the end of the thing, even before the beginning of a thing. Since we believe and teach that we are at the end, well, let's show you the end and how relevant circumcision is to the end. And not just circumcision, but every last covenant, the 7 everlasting covenant that Yahweh will make with the Hebrews. Now watch this in the book of Joshua. I just want you to see this. Show you how relevant this is. Joshua, the 5th chapter. And we're talking about circumcision. Why? Because it is the first covenant that one had to take hold to. And before I even show you the law, even before I show you the purpose and the meaning of it, I want you to see the relevance of it today. In the book of Joshua, the 5th chapter, the 1st verse, watch what this says. And it came to pass, when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard that Yahweh had dried up the waters of the Jordan from before the children of Israel, until we had passed over, that their heart melted, neither was there spirit in them any more, because of the children of Israel. In other words, Yahweh's fear had went before us. But even though these nations began to be afraid, their heart melted, there was no spirit in them, our people still had a reason why they would not even go forth to fight, even though Yahweh had went before us. Go figure. But watch this. The 2nd verse. At that time, Yahweh said to Joshua, make you sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. Now, how you going to get circumcised twice? Well, he's not really saying they're being circumcised twice, because all you need to be is circumcised once. But watch what he means. Get the understanding of how important this really is. And Joshua made him sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the heel of the foreskin. And what is the heel of the foreskin? Well, if you a male, you know what the heel of the foreskin is. In other words, there's what we call skin that will, once you pull it over the heel and cut it, then it will expose the thing that if you're not circumcised, it will continue to hide it. And Yahweh didn't want that. So he says, circumcise the foreskin at the heel. In other words, the part that's coming over the heel. You cut that part. And next thing you know, now what is being exposed is exactly what Yahweh wants exposed. And look what it says. And I may add, circumcision is something that we here at the House of Israel, 2330 Kemper Lane, will also be teaching to our brothers. So you won't have to rely on other people. Yahweh said there will be a time that we will not stay upon him that smote us. And yes, we do have men here that can circumcise and have circumcised. So you don't have to call the other various cities and states. You can call us. Watch what it says. And this, fourth verse, and this is the cause why Yehoshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt. Watch this. All the people that came out of Egypt, this is why we're starting here. This is why we're starting at the end rather than the beginning. And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt. Now, and all the ones that died that were of males 20 years and above, they all died in the wilderness. But this is the thing. They were all circumcised. Go figure. Now, all fifth verse. Now, all the people that came out were circumcised, as it did say. But all the people that were born in the wilderness, by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. And why? Why was these people left uncircumcised? And you're going to see exactly why they were left uncircumcised and how that this in of itself destroyed whole generations. A lot of people believe that they were destroyed because they were just rebellious in the wilderness. Well, you're right. They were so rebellious that they did not keep the covenant of Yahweh. And once you read about circumcision, you will see exactly why they were destroyed. Watch what it says. 6th verse. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness. You mean to tell me no time in 40 years you thought to circumcise your children? No time in the wilderness you thought about the law? No time in 40 years you thought about the everlasting covenant of Yahweh? And I'm going to show you how they knew that they must be circumcised. And watch this. 6th verse again. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed. And why? Because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, to whom Yahweh swore that he would not show them the land, which Yahweh swore to their fathers that he would give us, a land that flows with milk and honey. And their children, whom he raised up in their stead, them Joshua circumcised. So Joshua had to circumcise not only a bunch of children, but a bunch of grown men that had not reached the age of 20 by the time their fathers had died out. And it took 40 years for that to happen. But Joshua was charged with circumcising them. But why was that important? For they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. Man, you had 40 years to try to do the right thing, but they did not. And it came to pass, when they were done circumcising all the people, that they stayed in their places in the camp till they were whole. And Yahweh said to Joshua, after they were circumcised, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Therefore, the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. And what do Gilgal mean? That Yahweh had rolled away our reproach. That's what it means. This wasn't no city that we came into that was established, had a name, had people that had to be conquered. No, we named this place. We established this place because this was the place where Yahweh rolled away our reproach. And what was the reproach? That our fathers never circumcised their sons in 40 years in the wilderness, which showed our rebellion. And watch what it says in the 10th verse. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho. Now you're going to see why that was important. And I'll tell you before we even read it. Because you can't even keep the Passover without being circumcised. And the only reason they was able to keep it in the wilderness, one time, you're only going to read it, they kept the Passover coming out of Egypt. And the only other time they kept the Passover is the second year coming out. And why? Because all the men of war that came out of Egypt, as it clearly states, all the people that came out were circumcised. So they was able to keep it. But they were so rebellious in the wilderness, they wouldn't circumcise their sons. And Yahweh was not going to have anybody to eat the Passover unless they were circumcised. And he was talking about the men. And when the men began to die out, you had a bunch of men that was not circumcised. That's how important circumcision is. Now imagine this today. We're in captivity. How many men do you think are circumcised today? Many of the women, they're not asking these guys, are you circumcised? And then if you are circumcised, are you circumcised in the heart? In other words, do you keep the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of Yahweh? The only thing that men want to know about a woman is, are you married? And the only thing that a woman want to know about a man, are you married? But what about circumcision? Here it is. You got Israelite congregations right now today, and I know about them. They would allow people to be in their congregation uncircumcised. And that's the law. Not only is the law, it's the covenant of Yahweh. Now, the foreigner, they won't allow him in, whether he's circumcised or not. And many of the foreigners, they know they got to be circumcised. And I'm going to show you how they know they are circumcised and want to come in. But Israel is not circumcised, and they allowed to come in. Yahweh said this is a total false balance, and I'm going to show you that. But imagine this, in the wilderness now. Here it is. If our people believe, and it is true, that according to Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, around the 33rd verse, that our people will indeed be going into the wilderness again. And I get this question all the time. Well, how long will we be in the wilderness? Well, if you're not teaching that you must be circumcised today, then when do you actually believe you're going to get circumcised? You think these people going to come into the wilderness uncircumcised and then have a heart and a mind and a spirit to be circumcised? I know our people want the wilderness to be a quick process. Please let this process go. Please let this process not be 40 years again. Well, our people who was circumcised coming out of Egypt didn't even make it to the land. And Yahweh, he had to destroy them over the course of 40 years just to bring in some new blood that was willing to learn, willing to follow. So ask yourself once again, let your imaginations come forth. Our people are not even taught to be circumcised today. So not only we're going into the wilderness uncircumcised, unlike our fathers who went into the wilderness circumcised, still did not teach their children to be circumcised. So if you're going into the wilderness uncircumcised, do you honestly believe that you're going to teach your children to be circumcised? And that's why this is so important. Here it is. Watch this. In the book of Numbers, the 9th chapter. Because this is the law. In Numbers, the 9th chapter, and we're talking about circumcision, the very first covenant, everlasting covenant that Yahweh will make with the Hebrews, the children of Israel. In the book of Numbers, the 9th chapter, and we're going to start reading at the first verse. Watch this. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at evening, you shall keep it in its appointed season, according to, watch this, all the rites of it, according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall you keep it. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at evening in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahweh commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moshe and before Aaron on that day. And those men said to him, we are defiled by the dead body of a man. Why are we kept back that we may not offer an offering of Yahweh in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moshe said to them, stand still, and I will hear what Yahweh will command concerning you. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or is in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahweh. The 14th day of the second month at evening, they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it, according to all the ordinances of the Passover. They shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not in a journey or forbears to keep the Passover, even that same soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of Yahweh in his appointed season. That man shall bear sin. They're in the wilderness now. And if a stranger, watch this, shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yahweh. Watch what it says. Because there was no time in the history of the children of Israel where there was no strangers at all. We always had strangers among us. Watch what it says. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yahweh, according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. And watch what it says. You shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. And why? Because we always had foreigners among us. And Yahweh had laws that would teach us how to deal with foreigners, even though our people don't know how to deal with foreigners, nor do they know how to deal with the children of Israel. And the first thing, that whether you are an Israelite or not, that you should be teaching and telling Israel and the foreigner, you must be circumcised. You must be circumcised. That's the law. That's the law. Watch this. And then I'm going to show you the ordinance of the Passover so you can see how important this law is, this ordinance is, and circumcision is. Its purpose, its meaning. Watch this in the book of Leviticus, the 12th chapter. Leviticus 12. Show you the law. And as I stated before, if you're going to raise a holy seed, how can you raise a holy seed without you looking for someone that is circumcised? And once you know they're circumcised, then you look to see if their heart is circumcised. And how do you know whether their heart is circumcised? Do you keep the laws, commandments, statutes, judgments, and testimonies of Yahweh? And if they can't just say yes, if they give you a bunch of mumbo jumbo, well, what laws you talking about? Or what you talking about today or in the land? Or in other words, if they can't just say yes, then no, you're not dealing with someone who's circumcised in the heart. Watch this in the book of Leviticus, the 12th chapter, the first verse. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a woman has conceived seed, bears a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And watch the third verse. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Period. No ifs, no buts. What if it's a Sabbath day? On the 8th day, he must be circumcised. What if we not in the land? On the 8th day, he must be circumcised. It didn't say if you was in the land. It didn't say unless it was the Sabbath day. It didn't say none of that. On the 8th day, period, he must be circumcised. There are no excuses. All you got to do is the law. And let me show you. If you're not doing the law, let me show you. If you come up with an excuse why you're not going to do the law, look what the law says in the book of Deuteronomy, the 27th chapter. Watch this. For all those who believe that they can get around the law, in Deuteronomy, the 27th chapter, this is what it says in the 26th verse. Cursed is he. And a lot of people think they under the curse of Deuteronomy 28. Yahweh said, if you don't do all these words, all these curses shall follow you. Yahweh said, blessed is he that do all the words of this law. How you going to tell somebody they're cursed and they doing the law? Well, watch this. In Deuteronomy, the 27th chapter, the 26th verse. Cursed is he that confirms not all the words of this law to do them. And all the people shall say, amen, which means this is true. Curse if you don't confirm the words to do it. We don't care about what you're saying. We want to see what you're doing. You got a bunch of people who call themselves collecting tithes, collecting offerings, but won't feed no poor. with their tithes, with their offerings, and they know this is what they are for. And what do they got to deal with? Cursed is he that confirms not all the words of this law to do them. What are you doing with the tithes and offerings? Are you feeding the poor or are you feeding yourself? Period. And are the people, the men that sit in the sanctuary of Yahweh, are they circumcised? Because that is the law. Are you married to one that is circumcised? What's the ordinance of the Passover? So you can see how important this law is. Because rest assured, we are going in the wilderness again with a bunch of people that are not circumcised. But in Egypt, all the people that came out, all the men that came out, the men of war, was circumcised. And they had to endure 40 years. So how long do we have to endure with a bunch of people that ain't circumcised? These are the things I want you to consider. Exodus 12, watch what it says. Verse 43. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when you have circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. In other words, as I stated before, we always had strangers among us. This law would be irrelevant if all we had around us was a bunch of Israelites. When will our people wake up? Here it is, they think they keeping Israel intact by just having a bunch of people that look like them and don't know who they are like them together, separating themselves from some foreigners, but the people that's with them ain't even circumcised. And they know some of these people are not circumcised, nor are they teaching them to be circumcised. But the foreigner who might be circumcised, you leave him out. This is a false balance. Watch what this says. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. In other words, these are people, the foreigners that can eat, is one bought with your money, born in your house, and then you can command that he be circumcised. 46th verse. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry forth any other flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. Because why? Because all the congregation of Israel supposed to be circumcised. And when a stranger shall sojourn with you and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised. And then let him come near and keep it. And why? And he shall be as one that is born in the land, even though he's not an Israelite, even though he's not born in the land, even though this is not his heritage. This is not his birthplace. He can keep it as long as he is circumcised. Watch what it says. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. And that's talking about Israel also. For it says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and to the stranger that sojourns, in other words, lives among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as Yahweh commanded Moshe and Aaron, so did they. So you got to be circumcised. This is number one covenant, the very first covenant. Here you talking about getting married, and you don't even know if these people are circumcised or not. What would you do after you married just to find out they ain't circumcised? And you might find yourself stuck to a man who, I'm going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, is not even under the covenant of Yahweh. He can't keep the Passover, but he can't even enter the land. Watch this in the book of Ezekiel 44. The book of Ezekiel 44. And watch what it says. Because I made no mistake about it. Ezekiel already let us know that we're going into the wilderness again. Which means we must be circumcised again. Because everybody that come out this time will not be circumcised. And watch this. To prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're not going into the land without being circumcised. Just like Joshua will begin to circumcise all the males, men of war, in the wilderness, in a place called Gilgal, right before they went into the Holy Land. And when did he circumcise them? According to the scriptures, it was the first month, around the 10th day of the first month. And it took them a few days to be whole, and then they can keep the Passover. The first month, the 14th day of that month at evening. So when our people went into the land, after keeping the Passover, you can see them going into the land in the first month, when they begin to start taking over. At the end of the first month, going into the second month, our people start fighting for the Holy Land. How much different do you think it'll be this time? But watch what it says in the book of Ezekiel 44. And watch this. The 9th verse. Thus says Yahweh, no stranger uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel. They cannot come in my sanctuary. In other words, where is Yahweh's sanctuary? Well, his sanctuary will be in the Holy Land. And if a stranger can't come in, what in the world makes you think Israel could come in? Since Yahweh said, and I'm going to show you again, that there's only one manner of law for the homeborn and for the stranger. So if a stranger can't come into the sanctuary, uncircumcised in heart, uncircumcised in flesh, Israel cannot come into that sanctuary, which means this should be the first thing on your heart and your mind, to be circumcised. That's why the old proverb, those that does not know history is destined to repeat it. Here it is. We got to go through the wilderness again, which should be letting you know we must be circumcised again. And you're not going in a land being uncircumcised, because Joshua didn't allow them to go in a land being uncircumcised in the past, coming out of bondage, coming out of Egypt. So what will we do in the nearest future? Watch the 5th verse of this same chapter. And Yahweh said to me, son of man, watch this. I want you to see this. Mark well and behold with your eyes. Hear with your ears all that I say to you concerning all the ordinances of the house of Yahweh. Now we're talking about what it takes to get in the house of Yahweh. The ordinances of the house of Yahweh and the laws thereof. Mark well the entering into the house with every going forth of the sanctuary. And you shall say to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, thus is Yahweh, O you house of Israel, let it suffice you of all your abominations, in that you have brought into my sanctuary strangers uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my sanctuary, to pollute it, even my house, when you offer my bread, the fat of the blood, and they have broken my covenant because of all your abominations. And you have not kept the charge of my holy things, but you have set keepers of my charge in my sanctuary for yourselves. And that's why Yahweh let us know we got to be circumcised, man. And this should be at the first front of your mind, whether you get married, whether you're going in the land, whether you're coming out of bondage. And whether you just coming into the ways of the Most High, you must be circumcised. Again, let me show you the law in the book of Numbers, the 15th chapter. We showed you the law of the Passover, but let's just read this law in plain English. Numbers 15. And watch what it says. 15th verse. And we can start at the 14th verse. And if a stranger sojourns with you, and I'm here to tell you, we always had foreigners dwelling among us. This is nothing new at all. Or whoever is among you in your generation, whoever it is, and would offer an offering made by fire of a sweet Savior unto Yahweh, as you do, so he shall do. One ordinance shall be both for you, of the congregation, and also for the stranger that sojourns with you, an ordinance forever in your land. No, it didn't say that. An ordinance forever in your inheritance. No. It says an ordinance forever in your generation as you are, so shall the stranger be before Yahweh. One law, one manner shall be for you and the stranger that sojourns with you. So if you're not encouraging, you're not teaching, and you're not mandating, whether you're a foreigner or not, that you must be circumcised, then you're not keeping the law. Nor are you teaching the law, nor are you confirming the law. We got people talking about you can't even keep the law in captivity. Well, can you keep this? Because if you can't keep this, you don't even know what the covenant of circumcision is. And let me show you the covenant of circumcision. Right before I show you that, the meaning and the purpose of circumcision, because you're definitely not going in the land without being circumcised in heart or in flesh. You can forget that. And Yahweh talked about those who were circumcised when they came out of bondage. And here it is. You don't even think you can keep the law. They kept the Passover the second year after they came out of Egypt. But to show you our people knew all about this covenant, because it is one of the greatest covenants that Yahweh gave us. And why? Because this covenant is the covenants that establish our relationship with him. But let me show you how important this thing was to our people. In the book of Genesis 34, watch this, talking about circumcision, which is the very first covenant that should be on your mind. So if you're a male, whether you're a foreigner or not, you got to be circumcised. So don't come calling me and say, well, can so-and-so come in and this type of people come in, this type of person come in. Most people ask me, can we marry a foreigner? Instead of asking me about how can a foreigner be a part of the house of Israel? We just skipping a lot of steps. The question should be, do we have to be circumcised? Yes. Not just in flesh, but also in heart. In Genesis 34, watch this. Just want you to see this thing. Even though they were being deceitful, watch what it says in the 13th verse. Or let's start at the 11th verse. And Shechem said to her father and to her brothers, this is after he raped their sister, their daughter. Let me find grace in your eyes. And what you say to me, I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as you shall say to me. But give me the damsel to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. In other words, you done already defiled my sister. You already took my sister. You already laid with my sister. But watch what they say to him. And they said to them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised. In other words, even though it was they had deceit with them, this is the truth. This is the truth. For that is a reproach unto us. And did not we read in the book of Joshua where Yahweh rolled the reproach of Israel off them? So they called that place Gilgal And why? Because Joshua had circumcised them the second time. So the reproach was rolled off. And our people knew that this was a reproach. But you think this is how brothers is talking to the sisters and the sisters is talking to the brothers? No. This is not the first thing on their mind. Watch what this says. 15th verse. But this will we consent to you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. And ain't that what the law said? The law says, as we are, so shall they be. These brothers know the law. They understand the covenant, even though they were being deceitful. In other words, they had no intentions of giving their sister to these people, to this man. That's what was deceitful. But they told them the truth. Then will we give our daughters to you, and will we take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not listen to us, to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, and we will be gone. We'll be out of here. There's no questions about it. We don't even have to consider this thing if you're not going to be circumcised. And these questions we're not asking at all. Part of the covenant, this is only part of the covenant, started in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, the covenant of circumcision. And watch what it says in Genesis 15. The 17th verse. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. What pieces is it talking about? Well, the pieces that Yahweh told Abram to cut, starting in the 8th verse, and watch what it says. And he said, Yahweh, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said to him, take me a heifer of 3 years old, a she-goat of 3 years old, a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. And he took him all these, divided them in the middle, laid each piece one against another, but the birds he divided not. In other words, little do people know that the word covenant means to cut. It means to pass through. And this is what Yahweh did. And if you study all the 7 everlasting covenants, if you study covenants, period, then you will see, and we will point out how Yahweh will cut and divide and separate to demonstrate that this is how he bring about a covenant. You can swear something, but it ain't a covenant. You can promise something, but it ain't a covenant. But once you start cutting and dividing, as Yahweh will, now you're talking about a covenant. Watch what this says. 17th verse again. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, a burning lamp, passed between those pieces. In the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto your seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. And he named the lands that will become the seed of Abraham: the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaims, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. 10 nations. And why 10? Because you're going to see what 10 represents in the scriptures that nobody else can teach you and show you. And when will Yahweh establish this thing? See, he made the covenant with Abraham, right? But everything must be established. And Yahweh did not establish this thing until Abram will have a son, where he will establish it in the book of Genesis, the 21st chapter. And this is what it says in Genesis 21, where Yahweh will establish this thing with Abram. In Genesis 21, this is what it says. The first verse. And Yahweh visited Sarah as he had said. And Yahweh did to Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time on which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bore to him, Yitzhak, or Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. And we knew this was going to be established with the son of Sarah, with the son of Abraham, through Sarah, because Yahweh prophesied it so. And watch this in Genesis 17. Before we close out, so you can see this. Genesis 17:1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face. And Elohim talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. Neither shall your name any more be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made you. And I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you. Kings shall come out of you, and I will establish, watch this, and I will establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be an Elohim to you and to your seed after you. So in other words, how can you expect Yahweh to be your Elohim and to your seed after you, and you don't even want to get circumcised, and you're not circumcised? In other words, you're not even under the covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham, you shall keep my covenant, therefore, you and your seed after you in their generations. And you're going to see this was not done with Ishmael, even though he was circumcised. But Yahweh did not establish the covenant with any other son of Abraham but Isaac. This is my covenant, 10th verse, which you shall keep between me and you and your seed after you. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. 12th verse. Or 11th verse. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant between me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in a house, bought with your money of any stranger, which is not of your seed. In other words, everybody got to be circumcised. He that is born in your house, he that is bought with your money, must need to be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So why would you even, that's the first thing, sisters, that you need to know. Are you circumcised? If they coming in the sanctuaries, are you circumcised? Do you believe in the Most High? Then you must be circumcised. And Elohim said to Abram, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but shall her name be. And I will bless her and give you a son also of her. Yes, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. And Abraham, watch this. And Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Watch this. And Abraham said to Elohim, oh, that Ishmael might live before you, Yahweh. And Elohim said, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son indeed, and you shall call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. As for Ishmael, I've heard you. Behold, I've blessed him, will make him fruitful, will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear to you at this set time in the next year. So here, Yahweh is not only defining circumcision, and what do the word circumcision means? It means to cut, to divide. And what did he tell you to cut? The foreskin or the heel of the foreskin. In other words, once you pull that skin over the heel, you cut it. Anything that's over the heel, you cut. But he also said, circumcise the foreskin of your heart. And we're going to show you how to do exactly that. The 7 everlasting covenants of Yahweh. And this is number 1. Because without doing this, there are no other covenants that you can call yourself doing. Don't wait until you get into the wilderness. Don't wait until you try to get into the land, because you're not going in the land. Yahweh wants you to establish your relationship with him now, not later. As our fathers did before they went into Egypt, while they was in Egypt, and even when they came out of Egypt. It's just when they got into the wilderness, they refused to keep his covenant. So until tomorrow, Yahweh love you, and so do I. Shalom.
This song is dedicated to the Most High first, and to the daughters that have done wrong in the past. This is my apologies to you. Hear me out. 1,000 marches may seem a lot to get to my queen. One of these virtuous daughters, my love is never departed. But when adversity shows up, I need the graces of Noah. And when there's too much to paddle, sometimes my ship needs a motor. But that's the strong like a soldier, my love can carry me over. When my soul is malnourished, for when relationships perish, I firm on standing my ground. A king that looks for his crown. I'm far different from the other men that was coming around. I want to handle y'all business and not flee from commitment. Raise up the rightest to children that fits the rightest description. Loving correctly's my sickness. Y'all please write a prescription that heal up all my afflictions. To find true love is my mission. I did it all out of order. We're stepping up to your daughters to keep the order of Torah. The rest is clearer than water. Maybe that was the reason why the relationship faltered. So I'ma chill and get myself right forward, head to the altar. So I apologize for the lies to you I ever told. I apologize for the love to you I never showed. I apologize, I wasn't quite the man I meant to be. No sympathy or empathy, simply say that it was me. I apologize for the lies to you I ever told. I apologize for the love to you I never showed. I apologize, I wasn't quite the man I meant to be. No sympathy or empathy, simply say that it was me. I say, not trying to be sympathetic, just take precautions and measure. When you don't honor and treasure, that's when the emotions get severed. We wasn't on the right level, we both followed our hearts, and that just led to our demise of us just growing apart. You see, we both made a promise that we weren't able to keep. You said that I was that man that you were aiming to seek. I said that you was that daughter that I was seeking to meet. We both could eat from the tree, even though that nectar was sweet. Sometimes I pray for some peace, a quick Shabbat from the grief. But the anchor that blocked the happiness where you destined to be. The life's lesson to teach, very important to me. No matter how hard that you force to embrace it, but not meant to be. My love for you never cease, just don't love you more than me. Maybe the payments for the daughters I acquainted with grief. I can't get rid of my pride and pull our ego aside. The right while I compromise. To y'all's daughters, I apologize. I apologize for the lies to you I ever told. I apologize for the love to you I never showed. I apologize, I wasn't quite the man I meant to be. No sympathy or empathy, simply say that it was me. I apologize for the lies to you I ever told. I apologize for the love to you I never showed. I apologize, I wasn't quite the man I meant to be. No sympathy or empathy, simply say that it was me. I apologize for the lies to you I ever told. I apologize for the love to you I never showed. I apologize, I wasn't quite the man I meant to be. No sympathy or empathy, simply say that it was me. Apologies to y'all's daughters, to y'all's daughters. Apologies to y'all's daughters, to y'all's daughters. My apologies to y'all's daughters, to y'all's daughters. 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 My apologies to y'all's daughters, to y'all's daughters. Apologies to y'all's daughters, to y'all's daughters. Please forgive me.